The story of the 10 plagues that befell Egypt is a key narrative in the book of Exodus in the Bible. The story unfolds when the Israelites, descendants of Jacob, are enslaved in Egypt. Moses, chosen by God, is sent to deliver the Israelites from bondage and lead them to the promised land. However, Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, refuses to let them go. To convince Pharaoh to release the Israelites, God sends a series of 10 devastating plagues upon Egypt, each more severe than the last. Here's a summary of the 10 plagues. 1. Water turned to blood. Moses, following God's instructions, strikes the Nile River with his staff, and its waters turn to blood. The fish in the river die, and the water becomes undrinkable. This plague affects all the rivers, streams, and reservoirs of Egypt, leaving the Egyptians without clean water. But Pharaoh's heart remains hardened, and he refuses to let the Israelites go. 2 frogs. God then sends a plague of frogs. The frogs come up out of the Nile and swarm all over Egypt, invading homes, kitchens, and even beds. They become a nuisance to the Egyptians, but when Pharaoh begs for relief, he promises to let the Israelites go. However, once Moses prays to end the plague and the frogs die, Pharaoh changes his mind and hardens his heart again. 3. Gnats/lice. Without warning, God instructs Moses to strike the dust of the earth, and it turns into gnats or lice. These insects cover the people and animals of Egypt, causing great discomfort. Even the magicians of Pharaoh admit that this is the finger of God, but Pharaoh remains stubborn and refuses to release the Israelites. 4. Flies. Swarms of flies descend upon Egypt, filling the houses and covering the ground. The land is ruined by the swarms, but God spares the region of Goshen, where the Israelites live, demonstrating his power. Pharaoh calls Moses and offers a compromise, but once the flies are gone, he hardens his heart yet again and refuses to free the Israelites. 5. Death of livestock. God sends a plague that kills the livestock of the Egyptians, including horses, donkeys, camels, cattle, sheep, and goats. Yet, none of the animals belonging to the Israelites are harmed. Despite the loss, Pharaoh's heart remains hard, and he will not let the Israelites go. 6. Boils. Moses and Aaron take handfuls of soot from a furnace and scatter it into the air, and it causes painful boils to break out on people and animals throughout Egypt. The boils are so severe that even Pharaoh's magicians cannot stand before Moses because of their pain. But Pharaoh's heart remains unchanged. 7. Hail. God sends a devastating storm of hail, mixed with fire, that destroys crops, livestock, and anything left unprotected in the fields. The hailstorm is so severe that there has never been anything like it in Egypt before. Pharaoh admits he has sinned and asks Moses to pray for the storm to stop, but once it does, he again changes his mind and refuses to let the Israelites go. 8. Locusts. A swarm of locusts invades Egypt, covering the land and devouring every green plant and all the crops that the hail had not destroyed. There is no vegetation left in Egypt after the locusts pass through. Pharaoh, realizing the gravity of the situation, calls for Moses and asks for forgiveness. But as soon as the locusts are gone, he once again refuses to release the Israelites. 9. Darkness. Darkness falls over Egypt for 3 days, a thick darkness that can be felt. No one in Egypt can see or move, but the Israelites have light in their dwellings. Pharaoh, desperate, offers to let the Israelites go if they leave their livestock behind. But when Moses insists that they must take everything with them, Pharaoh becomes enraged and warns Moses never to come before him again. 10. Death of the firstborn. The final and most devastating plague strikes the Egyptians when God sends the angel of death to kill every firstborn son in Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh to the firstborn of prisoners, and even the firstborn of livestock. To protect the Israelites, God instructs them to mark their doorposts with the blood of a lamb, so the angel will pass over their homes. This event becomes known as the Passover. The cries of grief in Egypt are unmatched as every household suffers a loss. Pharaoh, devastated by the death of his own firstborn son, finally relents and urges Moses and the Israelites to leave Egypt immediately. They leave in haste, taking with them their flocks, herds, and possessions. The Exodus. The Israelites depart from Egypt, beginning their journey towards the Red Sea and the Promised Land. However, even after letting them go, Pharaoh changes his mind one last time and pursues the Israelites with his army. But God intervenes by parting the Red Sea, allowing the Israelites to cross safely. When the Egyptians attempt to follow, the waters close over them, and they are drowned. The story of the 10 plagues serves as a powerful example of divine judgment and deliverance. It highlights God's power, the stubbornness of Pharaoh, and the deliverance of the Israelites from bondage.